Exactly what we're going to talk about right now, that new evidence and what charges, if at all, Alec Baldwin could face in this case involving the shooting death of director of photography Halyna Hutchins on the set of that movie. Now, here to talk about that, of course, we are so grateful for Matt Fakhoury being here with your legal background, your Chicago criminal defense attorney. What are we expecting to see Alec Baldwin face as a result of this accidental shooting?
So I don't expect Alec Baldwin necessarily to face any charges, and here's why. In order for any crime to occur, whether it's a misdemeanor all the way up to very serious felony, you need the requisite mental state, right? And you hear it in terms of premeditation or an intentional act or a reckless act and possibly like a negligent act, like a negligent homicide. I don't think that fits here, so to speak. So I don't think a crime necessarily occurred, at least with respect to Alec Baldwin. He didn't commit an act intentionally, for example, like I said. So there could be charges. I think the charges would be more on a negligent basis for other people involved, but not necessarily for Alec, at least based on what I've read so far.
Even with the fact that he's the executive producer on the film, that he would be responsible for the entire production.
So I think there are other people that their standard of care, their responsibility is ahead of his. So there's the armor, the young woman who was handling it. There's the assistant, I believe his name is Dave Halls, who actually gave Alec the gun before he used it as a part of rehearsing the scene. So I think those individuals are a little bit more directly connected to the action rather than Alec himself.
I'm seeing reports that 500 shells were on set. And when we've talked to people who are in the industry, they say there should never be live ammunition found on set, even if it was being used as dummy rounds, that this is very, very rare. And then the word complacency now being used to describe some of the mood on set. What does that tell you about this case? Or do we have any knowledge of why there would be 500 shell casings found on set?
So in all fairness, it is obviously an action movie set, from what I understand. It's an old Western. You expect there to be guns and weapons and whatnot. It sounds like there was some standards of care, obviously, some safety regulations that weren't met.
Wow.
I think because of that, obviously, we have a death here, and subsequent to this, there's going to be some type of civil repercussions, maybe a wrongful death lawsuit. So there was obviously a problem here, and because of that, a death resulted.
I heard loud and clear what you said about Alec Baldwin not facing criminal charges from your standpoint, but the district attorney has mentioned that no one has been ruled out for criminal charges. So do you think that it will be the armorer? Will it be the assistant director that handed him the weapon, or will there be someone else that could be found criminally liable?
So if there is going to be criminal charges, it's going to be based on what we call a negligent homicide, which simply means that there was a standard of care. That standard of care was breached and a death resulted. Here, there was obviously a standard of care regarding the safety regulations and those people who are responsible for making sure that these guns are safe on set. Because there was a breach and a death resulted, only those individuals should be held responsible. So the young woman who's I believe she's a 24-year-old armorer, right, who is directly responsible for this, I think could face criminal liability. Dave Halls, who was supposed to check the gun before handing it to Alec Baldwin, obviously didn't meet his standard of care. There was a breach of care for safety on his part as well. So I think there could be some type of criminal liability attached to him as well. But again, I don't think Alec, at least based on what I've read so far, should be charged.
Wow. And obviously this is going to amplify the need for swift changes throughout the industry, just to prevent anything like this from happening ever again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously there's a lesson to be learned here, right? This is a sad situation. I think that the procedures need to be implemented so there is no safety or dangers, I should say, before these weapons are given to the actors on scene. There needs to be a look at the qualifications of the people that are hired to implement these safety procedures regarding their experience and education in handling these items. But there's going to be some changes that need to be implemented across the board, definitely.
Absolutely. Matt Fakhoury, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.